man has been arrested and charged with shooting and killing his common-law wife. 29-year-old Brandon Dickerson is in the Brazos County Jail. Dickerson told detectives he shot Alexis Walls following an argument and fight between the two.
I just killed the mother of my child. The caller? 29-year-old Brandon Michael Dickerson. The location? 500 block of East 18th Street in Bryan, Texas. A working-class neighborhood where folks know their neighbors, where kids ride bikes in the street, where a toddler should be tucked safely in bed at this hour. 12:40 in the morning, February 7th, 2025. A phone rings at Bryan Police Department dispatch. The voice on the other end isn't frantic. No screaming, no tears. Just cold, flat words that freeze the blood of everyone listening. But inside that house, an 18-month-old boy named Zalen is awake. His mother, 23-year-old Alexis Walls, lies dead in the bedroom. 15 gunshots. 15 separate moments where Brandon could have stopped. He didn't. When officers arrive, there's no standoff, no chase. Brandon walks out and surrenders like he's turning in homework. Inside, they find exactly what he promised them. A crime scene that tells a story of rage, jealousy, and a woman who never stood a chance. But here's the question that should haunt every single one of us. What drives a man to empty a gun into the woman he shares a life with, the woman who gave him a son, and then calmly dial 911 like he's reporting a fender bender? What kind of darkness lives inside someone who can kill and confess in the same breath? Welcome to Shadows of Crime, where we don't sugarcoat the darkness. If you're ready for the raw truth, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from today. Let's get into it. Before we get into what happened that night, you need to know who Alexis Walls really was. Because this wasn't just a murder. This was the destruction of a hurricane, a force of nature who lit up every room she entered, who made strangers feel like family, who was days away from starting college with dreams bigger than Bryan, Texas could hold. October 9th, 2001. That's the day Alexis Walls entered the world as the youngest of 3 children, and from that moment, her family knew she was different. They called her a hurricane, not because she destroyed things, but because of the energy she brought into every single room. Laughter, warmth, the kind of presence that made you feel alive just being near her. Bubbly, talkative, friendly to a fault. Alexis never met a stranger. She had this gift for making everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room, whether you were her best friend or someone she'd just met in line at the grocery store. People didn't just like Alexis, they loved her instantly. By 23, she was a mother to Zalen, an 18-month-old boy diagnosed with autism. For Alexis, motherhood wasn't just a role, it was her entire universe. Zalen wasn't like other toddlers, and Alexis understood that. She was his protector, his anchor, the one person who could decode his needs when the rest of the world couldn't. She poured everything into that little boy, building a world where he felt safe and understood. But Alexis wasn't just living for her son. She was building a future for herself, too. August 20th, 2025. That was the date circled on her calendar. Her college start date, computer science major. Applications filled out. Dreams mapped. When she was going to get her bachelor's degree, create a career, show Zalen that his mama could do anything she set her mind to. Her best friend Tiffany remembers interviewing Alexis for a childcare job years earlier. Tiffany loved her instantly. They went from co-workers to sisters, dreaming about a future where their kids would grow up together, where they'd build tree houses connecting their backyards.
When I interviewed Alexis for a childcare job years ago, I loved her instantly. It was just easy to be around her. We quickly went from being co-workers to sisters, planning a future where our children would grow up as siblings. with a treehouse connecting our backyards.
Alexis once told Tiffany she wanted to name her future daughter after her. That's the kind of friend Alexis was, the kind who wove the people she loved into the fabric of her future. She shared a home on East 18th Street with Brandon Dickerson, her common-law husband. He was 29, 6 years older, and the father of Zaylin. From the outside, they looked like any young couple grinding through life, raising a kid, paying bills, figuring it out one day at a time. Friends and family saw them as a unit, a team. But something was shifting beneath the surface. Brandon started watching Alexis differently, not with the eyes of a partner who trusts and loves, with the eyes of someone keeping score, someone suspicious, someone who questioned where she went, who she talked to, what took her so long at the store. There was no proof of anything wrong, no evidence that Alexis was doing anything except being herself, friendly, outgoing, full of life. But in Brandon's mind, suspicion was already hardening into conviction. And jealousy, left unchecked, doesn't just poison a relationship, it kills. Jealousy doesn't kick down the door and announce itself. It slithers in quietly, disguised as concern. It starts with small questions that seem harmless at first. Who are you texting? Mom, where did you go today? Why did it take you so long at the store? Who's that person who liked your post? Brandon Dickerson had convinced himself of something that didn't exist. In his mind, Alexis was cheating on him. No proof, no evidence, no messages, no witnesses, just a story he'd written in his head and decided was true. And once a man locks onto that kind of belief, facts stop mattering. Truth becomes irrelevant. All that's left is the rage. We don't know how long Brandon carried the suspicion. Days? Weeks? Months? What we do know is that by February 7th, 2025, it had consumed him completely. That night, around midnight, an argument erupted inside their home on East 18th Street. The details of what was said are lost to us. No recording, no witnesses who could hear the words. But we know the tone. Why, accusations, denials, a woman defending herself for the 100th time against claims that had no basis in reality. Maybe Alexis was exhausted. Maybe she'd spent months reassuring Brandon, proving her loyalty, explaining herself over and over until her voice went hoarse. Maybe that night, she finally snapped back. Or maybe she just wanted the argument to end so she could check on Zaylin and go to bed. We'll never know, because Brandon didn't let it end with words. He grabbed a gun. The bedroom became a war zone. 15 bullets, 15 separate decisions. 15 moments where Brandon Dickerson could have stopped, could have put the weapon down, could have walked away. After the first shot, he could have realized what he'd done and called for help. After the second, he could have dropped to his knees in horror. After the fifth, he could have seen Alexis, the mother of his child, the woman he claimed to love, and stopped the madness. He didn't. He kept firing, again and again and again, until the gun was empty and Alexis Walls, 23 years old, days away from starting college, full of dreams and plans and love for her son, was gone. And Zaylin was in the house, an 18-month-old boy, still in diapers, still learning to talk, heard sounds he couldn't possibly understand. Loud cracks that shattered the night. Maybe he cried out for his mama. Maybe he stayed silent, frozen in confusion. But he was there, feet away from where his mother was being murdered by his father. When the shooting stopped, the house fell into a terrible silence. No more gunfire, no more voices, just the weight of what had been done. Alexis lay dead in the bedroom, on her body bearing the evidence of Brandon's rage. Her future, college, career, watching Zaylin grow up, erased in less than a minute. Brandon stood there with the gun and a choice. Run. Hide the evidence. Panic. But he didn't do any of those things. Instead, he picked up his phone and made a call that would chill everyone who heard it. Pause for a second. If you've ever felt that gut feeling that something's wrong in a relationship, yours or someone you love, drop a comment. Have you ever ignored red flags? Have you ever wished you spoke up sooner? Let's talk about it, because what happened next proves that jealousy doesn't just hurt relationships. 12:40 in the morning. The house is silent except for the sound of Brandon Dickerson dialing 911. Most people who just committed murder are in full panic mode. Heart racing, some hands shaking, mind scrambling for what to do next. Run, hide the gun, wipe down surfaces, create an alibi, anything to avoid what's coming. Brandon did none of that. When the dispatcher answers, his voice is calm, controlled, matter of fact. No screaming, no sobbing, no begging for someone to come help. Just 6 words delivered like he's reporting a car accident. I just killed the mother of my child. Let that sink in. He doesn't say there's been a shooting, doesn't claim it was an accident or self-defense. He takes full ownership right there on the recorded line before a single officer has arrived. And then he waits, stays in the house, doesn't run, doesn't hide, just waits for the police to come get him, like he wants them to know exactly what he's done. On Bryan Police Department, officers race to the 500 block of East 18th Street. They're expecting chaos, maybe a barricaded suspect, maybe a hostage situation, maybe someone who's going to make this difficult. Instead, Brandon walks out the front door and surrenders without a single word of resistance. No standoff, no drama. Hands up. Game over. Inside the house, officers find exactly what Brandon promised them. Alexis's body in the bedroom, the gun nearby, and Zaylin, 18 months old, physically unharmed but surrounded by a nightmare no child should ever witness. The scene tells a story that doesn't need much interpretation. There's no sign of self-defense, no evidence of a struggle that would justify 15 gunshots, no weapon near Alexis's body, no indication she attacked Brandon first, and just a woman who was shot over and over and over while she was defenseless. Detectives sit down with Brandon and start asking questions. He doesn't lawyer up, doesn't stay silent. He admits everything. The argument, the suspicion that had been eating at him, the moment he grabbed the gun, pulling the trigger again and again until there was nothing left to fire. And his reason? He thought Alexis was cheating on him. Thought. Not knew. Not had proof. Not caught her in the act. Thought. His entire justification for taking the life of a 23-year-old mother was based on a belief he couldn't back up with a single shred of evidence. Forensics would later confirm what everyone already suspected. There was no infidelity, no secret messages, no hidden affair, no proof that Alexis had been unfaithful in any way. Brandon Dickerson murdered the mother of his child over something that existed only in his head, a story he told himself and decided was real. He's arrested on the spot, charged with murder. Bond set at $250,000. He's taken to Brazos County Jail, where he'll sit and wait for the legal system to decide his fate. But here's what makes this even more disturbing. Brandon didn't just confess to police after they arrived and started questioning him. He confessed to 911 before they even got there. He wanted credit for what he'd done, like killing Alexis was something to announce, something to own, something to be proud of. That level of coldness, that complete absence of panic or remorse in those first moments, tells you everything you need to know about what was going through Brandon Dickerson's mind. And he didn't see Alexis as a human being. He saw her as his property. And when he decided she'd betrayed him, he took her life like it was his right. Brazos County District Attorney Jarvis Parsons, along with prosecutors Abigail Goodman and Tiffany Larson, take on the case. Honestly, it's the easiest case they'll ever build. Brandon confessed on a recorded 911 call. He confessed again to detectives. The evidence is overwhelming. The gun, the body, 15 bullet wounds, an 18-month-old witness in the house. There's no angle for reasonable doubt, no mystery, no whodunit, just a man who killed and admitted it. While Brandon sits in Brazos County Jail, Alexis's family receives the phone call that shatters their world. Their daughter, their hurricane, their light, is gone. Their grandson witnessed it. And the man responsible? And someone they'd welcomed into their family. Someone they trusted with Alexis's life. Nearly 1 year later, February 3rd, 2026, Brandon Dickerson stands before Judge Kyle Hawthorne in the 85th District Court. No trial, no jury selection, no dramatic courtroom battle. Brandon pleads guilty. Just a flat admission in front of the judge. He murdered Alexis Walls in cold blood. Sentencing comes down swift, 50 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, half a century behind bars. Through his attorney, Michael R. Casaretto, Brandon expresses what he calls remorse. He says he takes full responsibility for what he's done. His legal team even commends the prosecutors for their professionalism, as if this is some kind of collaborative effort everyone should feel good about. But here's the thing about remorse. It's just a word when it comes too late. It doesn't rewind time. It doesn't bring Alexis back to life. It doesn't undo the trauma Zaylin carries. It doesn't erase the hole in her family's hearts. Remorse is what you're supposed to feel before you pull the trigger 15 times, not after you've been caught and caged. 50 years sounds like justice on paper. It sounds like a long time. But let's do the math. Alexis got 23 years of life. That's it. 23 years to laugh, love, dream, and build a future. Brandon stole all of that in less than a minute. Zaylin will grow up without his mother. He'll learn to talk, go to school, become a teenager, maybe even have kids of his own, all without Alexis there to see it. And Brandon? He'll eventually walk free. Older, sure, but free. That's not justice. That's just the best we've got. Alexis's family refuses to let the murder scene be the final word. They return to East 18th Street, not to relive the trauma, but to reclaim it, to turn a place of death into a space of love and remembrance. 12:30 in the afternoon, the exact time Alexis's life was stolen. Friends and family gather, each holding balloons in shades of purple and pink. They're about to paint the sky in her honor. And then, in a moment that breaks every heart watching, Zaylin, just a toddler, barely old enough to understand, places flowers on the steps for his mama. Pure, heartbreaking love from a little boy who will grow up knowing her only through stories. Best friend Tiffany steps forward to speak. Her voice cracks, but she pushes through. If I close my eyes and think of Alexis, and the first thing I hear is her voice, talking a mile a minute, laughing, making sure everyone around her was okay. She pauses, gathering strength. We spent a lot of time this week talking about the justice she deserves, but today is about the love she gave. One by one, others share their memories, her smile that could light up a room, her energy that made school easier for shy kids who felt invisible, how she protected everyone around her, friends, co-workers, children in her care. Alexis wasn't just loved, she was needed. But the community doesn't stop at remembrance. They rally for action. Letters are written to District Attorney Jarvis Parsons, calling Brandon a danger to society, urging that he never see parole. They collect them at the funeral home, building a file that will follow him through every parole hearing for the next 50 years. There's a call to action beyond the courtroom, too. Voter registration drives. If you don't vote, you don't have a say. Early voting starts February 17th. Primaries on March 3rd. They're determined to elect leaders who take domestic violence seriously. Zaylin now lives with his grandparents, Thomas Walls and Janetta Walker Washington. They're raising him with stories of his mother, keeping her memory alive, making sure he knows how fiercely she loved him. If Alexis's story hit you, don't just watch and move on. Share this video. Tag someone who needs to hear it. Write a comment honoring her memory or calling out domestic violence. Let's make sure her name isn't forgotten. Alexis Walls is not an isolated case. She's not some tragic anomaly we can file away and forget. She's one of more than 70 women shot and killed by intimate partners every single month in the United States. 70. Every month. That's more than 2 women every single day losing their lives to someone who claimed to love them. The numbers are staggering, and they're getting worse. Nearly half of all women report experiencing some form of abuse from an intimate partner. And from 2014 to 2023, intimate partner homicides of women rose by 22%. 22%. We're not getting better at protecting women. We're failing them at an accelerating rate. Jealousy is the silent killer in so many of these cases. It doesn't show up with a weapon in hand. It starts small. Questions about your phone, who you're texting, where you went, why you took so long. Then come the accusations, baseless, relentless, exhausting. Then the control, isolation from friends and family, monitoring your every move. And then, when control isn't enough anymore, comes the violence. Here are the red flags you need to watch for, whether it's your relationship or someone you love. Possessiveness that feels suffocating. Accusations with no basis in reality. Isolation tactics that cut you off from your support system. Constant monitoring of your phone, your social media, your whereabouts. These aren't signs of love, they're signs of danger. Alexis defended herself endlessly. She told Brandon the truth over and over. It didn't matter. Because jealousy isn't about truth, it's about control. And when someone is determined to believe their own story, no amount of honesty will change their mind. So what can we do? How do we stop the next Alexis Walls from becoming a statistic? First, speak up early. If you see red flags in your relationship or someone else's, say something. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't convince yourself it'll get better. It won't. Intervention saves lives. Second, safety planning. If you're in danger, prepare. Pack an emergency bag with essentials, documents, cash, clothes. Have trusted contacts who know your situation. Download apps like Circle of Six that let you send discreet alerts to friends when you need help. Third, know your resources. In Bryan, Texas, there's Phoebe's home at 979-775-5355. Nationally, the domestic violence hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. These aren't just numbers, they're lifelines. For survivors with children like Zaylin, trauma-informed care is critical. Therapy that understands what these kids have witnessed. Preserving positive memories of the lost parent so they don't grow up with only darkness. Healing is possible, but it takes intentional support. And we need systemic change. Red flag laws that allow temporary removal of firearms from individuals who pose a threat. Mandatory domestic violence education in schools and workplaces so people recognize the signs early. Voting for leaders who actually fund shelters and support services instead of just offering thoughts and prayers after another woman dies. Young women, hear this loud and clear. Don't be afraid to call for help. Don't be afraid to leave. Your life is worth more than someone else's insecurity. You are not responsible for managing someone else's jealousy or rage. You are not required to stay and prove your loyalty to someone who doesn't trust you. You deserve love that feels safe, not love that feels like surveillance. Alexis Walls deserved that kind of love. She deserved to start college in August. She deserved to watch Zaylin grow up. She deserved 50 more years of being the hurricane her family loved. She didn't get any of that because one man decided his suspicions mattered more than her life. We can't bring Alexis back, but we can honor her by making sure fewer women meet the same fate. Alexis Walls should be alive right now. She should be sitting in a computer science class, taking notes, building the future she'd planned. Now she should be watching Zaylin hit his milestones, first words, first steps, first day of school. She should be there to teach him, guide him, love him through every stage of his life. Instead, she's a name on a headstone, a story on a true crime channel, a memory kept alive by people who refuse to let her be forgotten. Brandon Dickerson will spend 50 years in prison. 50 years sounds like a long time until you remember that Zaylin will spend a lifetime without his mother. He'll never hear her voice except in old videos. He'll never feel her arms around him when he's scared or hurt. He'll grow up knowing his father is the reason his mother is gone. This is what domestic violence looks like when nobody stops it in time. When jealousy festers and turns to rage. When rage turns to 15 bullets fired into a woman who just wanted to live her life. Love isn't supposed to come with a body count. Relationships aren't supposed to end in murder. But here we are. Another woman dead. Another child growing up without a mother. Another family shattered beyond repair. So let me ask you this. What would you have done if you were Alexis's friend? Her neighbor? Her family member? Would you have seen the signs? Would you have said something? Or would you have convinced yourself it wasn't your place, that they'd work it out, that it couldn't possibly get that bad? Drop your answer in the comments. Let's talk about how we can stop the next tragedy before it happens, because there will be a next one, and a next one after that, unless we start paying attention, unless we start speaking up. Unless we stop treating domestic violence like someone else's problem. If this story shook you, don't just move on to the next video. Share it. Talk about it. Make sure Alexis Walls' name means something. Subscribe to Shadows of Crime for more stories that matter. We're not here to entertain you. We're here to wake you up. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a case. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to them. You might save a life. Alexis Walls was a hurricane, and even though she's gone, her light still burns in the people who loved her, in the son she left behind, and in every person who hears her story and decides to do better. Let's make sure it never goes out.